So welcome to this video about Vialattea Ski Resort in Italy. I was lucky enough to spend about 2 weeks there. 1 week in February 2024 with 5 of my mates and another week in December 2024 with 6 of us. We skied a total of 11 days, so I feel like I know the resorts really well. I just thought I'd share my thoughts on it. And yeah, if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing to it and hope you enjoy the video. The Vialattea Ski Resort is located in the Piemonte province of Italy. This is in northwest Italy and it borders France. The ski resort itself is actually spread across France and Italy, with most of its skiable terrain being in Italy. The total terrain size of this resort is 400 kilometres. This is massive, much bigger than most other resorts and only being outranked by some of the bigger resorts like the Three Valleys. The ski resort also hosted a lot of the Turin 2006 Winter Olympics, so you'll see a lot of Winter Olympic stuff left over, the Olympic Village in Sestiere, which is really cool to see and quite different compared to other resorts in the Alps. When going to Vialattea, we always chose to fly and rent a car. We'd fly from London, either Stansted or Gatwick, and then fly into Turin. Turin, we then rented a car, which is cheaper when compared to other countries like France, Austria and Switzerland, and it was only an hour drive to the resort. Other airports that are less than 2.5 hour drive away from Vialattea are Turin, obviously, at 1 hour, Milan at 2 hours, Lyon, Grenoble and Geneva at 2.5 hours. I'd recommend flying into Turin or Milan because to get from those French and Swiss airports, you're obviously going to have to go through the mountains. So if there's bad weather conditions, that could pose a problem. If you don't fancy renting a car from the airport, you can also take the train from Turin to Sauze, a town at the bottom of Vialattea, and then rely on taxis and local buses from there to go around the resort. Or you can just get a shared transfer like other ski resorts, which will go from most of the other airports. It also only takes 2 trains from London to get to Sauze. You catch a Eurostar from St Pancras in London to Paris, and then you change in Paris and go Paris to Sauze. This is quite a long journey and will take you a whole day, and it's probably more expensive than flying and renting a car. But again, if you're scared of flying or want to be environmental, this is a great option for you. The skiing at Vialattea is pretty good. Lots of steep red runs, a few black runs and plenty of blues for beginners. There are also green runs in France because Italy doesn't have the green run classification. And I'd also say one thing, they're quite generous on their slope grading. So a red in some resorts in France would maybe be a black in this resort, so do bear this in mind. So if you see a lot of red runs, kind of remember it would probably be a blue run at another resort. Like I said in the introduction, the ski resort has 400 kilometres of skiable terrain. However, unless you're going in peak winter, you'll often find that a lot of those runs are not open. We've been in December and most of the resort wasn't open and it wasn't connected. So thankfully we had a car and we could get around. But if you just got a transfer to say Sestiere, you are very much stuck in Sestiere for a week, and Sestiere itself is not big enough unless you're a beginner. On that point, the resort doesn't get as much snow as other mountains in the Alps. So if you look up mountains like Les Deux Alpes, Les Arcs, Le Plan, they get way more snow compared to Sestiere. This doesn't mean the skiing's bad. It still gets enough snow and they have enough snowmaking capabilities, but it's just something to bear in mind. Don't go expecting a load of free ride possibilities. It's probably going to be mainly on-piste skiing, which this resort does extremely well. One thing I noticed when being in a resort was the skiing was very different in each town. For example, in Sestiere, the skiing was very good and had access to plenty of runs, but a lot of the time these runs were quite short. However, if you went over to Sauze and San Sicario, these runs were longer, but the towns are at lower altitude, San Sicario at 1700 and Sauze at 1500, compared to Sestiere's 2000. So a lot of those runs at lower altitude, if it's warm, they're not fun to ski, or might not even have snow at all. Moving over to Cesano and Claviere, these runs are really good. They're very long, open runs with not as many people compared to places like Sestiere and Sauze. However, a lot of the runs on the left down into Cesano are very, very prone to bad weather. It's due to like lots of sun exposure. So when I went there in February 2024, all the runs from about, let's say about 2,000 meters were closed, which meant we had to download 2 lifts when we wanted to get back to Sestiere. However, the runs in Clavière were much better, very, very quiet, and probably one of my favorite parts to skiing. Just before you get to Montgenèvre, there's some few runs in the Vialattea Verde area, just shown here on the map. These runs were really quiet and some of my favourite runs in the Italian side. Really long, open reds, and eventually goes into a nice windy blue. I'd really recommend skiing this. It's also such a lovely view from 2,581 metres. Finally, Montgenèvre. This place was probably my favourite overall place to ski in the whole resort. Ironically, one of the furthest points away to us, but we did end up driving there a few days on some of the trips, just so we didn't have to traverse across the whole resort to get there. The reason I probably liked it so much is because they had nice open runs and they had the best snow, often had the best snow depth and just the overall best skiing experience. The town was good, there's a few nice cafes and bars in there that we also went to, but we didn't really stay around much in the evening. Again, I'd really, really recommend skiing in this area of the resort. So, the Après skiing resort. Firstly, all the towns have plenty of restaurants and bars in the area. However, it's a lot more chilled vibe compared to some other resorts in the Alps, especially if you compare it to the big Austrian and the big French resorts where they're big party towns. None of these places, apart from Sestiere a little bit, have party places to really go. The main Après bar in the whole resort is located in Sestiere, hence why we picked it. And this was good. However, if you're going in off season, there's not really much going on. However, when it is good, it's packed, everyone's dancing on the table, and it's your typical après ski vibe, which is lovely. I will say the drinks were €9 for a beer though, so it's very extreme and extremely expensive for Italy. I guess when it's the only place in the town, it can charge whatever it wants. There's also a few more bar clubs and then clubs in the town that you can go to after, but again, these are really quiet, and if you're in a group, you kind of just have to make your own vibe at the place. Overall though, there's plenty of things to do after skiing, plenty of bars and restaurants to drink at, no matter what town you're in. I'd recommend booking in Sestiere, Sauze D'oulx if you're planning on going with family, or Montgenèvre if your main focus is on skiing. The ski pass prices at Vialattea might shock you. A day pass is €51 in the Vialettea area, and a 6-day pass is €256. However, if you want to include Montgenèvre, you have to get the international pass, and the daily pass is a whopping €66. In Italy, this is really expensive. And the 6-day pass is more than €334. This is more expensive than some of the big resorts in France. I will say, the area of the ski resort is huge with up to 400 kilometres of skiable terrain. However, both times when I've either gone early season or when there's been bad conditions, they've not been great at opening runs up and maintaining runs. One tip I'd say when going to this resort is just buy the day passes for the areas you want to go, and also if you're not going to ski in Montgenèvre, don't buy the international pass. This will make it slightly cheaper, but it's an annoying factor when coming to booking in Vialattea ski area. My final thoughts on the resort, I'd say one thing that's really good about it is a huge ski area, so you won't get bored going for a week and maybe even 2 weeks of skiing. It's also really easy to get to, with 5 airports less than a 2.5 hour drive away, and it's accessible by 2 trains from London. It also has a calm, chill family vibe mainly, apart from Sestiere, so you can get good après in there if you want a bit of a balance. Moving on to some of the worst points about the resort, I will say I think it's expensive for what it is. You get much better deals in France and more reliable snow. So with everything in mind, I would say this is a really good place to ski, and if there's a good deal, go to it. However, I'd also consider some better resorts in the area. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts down below and please consider subscribing. I'm hoping to make more videos like this and film all the ski holidays I'm going to go on this winter.